So I recently reached out to my network of singers, anywhere from people who are beginning students learning how to sing to professional singers who are world-class, absolute top of their game. And I asked them, when they sing in front of other people, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is their anxiety level? And I was so surprised by the number. So that number was 7.5. Wow. When you think about 0 being you're so relaxed, you're basically asleep, and 10 being a full-blown meltdown, panic attack, 7.5, that's 3/4 of the way there to just absolute extreme maximum anxiety. And I was just so sadly surprised that this is such a big issue for people in my immediate circle. It doesn't have to be like this. In this video, I'll be talking a little bit about my own personal singing glow-up story, so to say, and I'll also be giving you action-based steps and systems that you can put in place to consistently and easily build your confidence. Hello lovely ones, this is Livia. I'm a professional operatic soprano and voice teacher, and I'm the founder of Singing for Self-Care. If you are interested in videos about heart-based singing and health, I highly suggest that you hit the subscribe button. And also you will find in the description of this video a gift for you. It's a free ebook called Singing with Confidence from me. And in it you will find all the things we spoke about today, plus a lot of worksheets to accompany your process. So why did I choose this topic? In all honesty, I hadn't really thought so much about confidence and singing until maybe 2 weeks or so ago, because mercifully in my own singing journey, I'm very confident with singing now, so it hasn't been something that's been actively on my mind. It certainly wasn't always that way. But what did get me starting to think about confidence more and more was feedback that I had had from my students. So every single one of them had actually mentioned that their confidence had improved the more that they were singing. And I was also interviewed recently and was asked about my origin story, how I started to get into singing and how I got to where I am now. And it made me reflect on, there was definitely a time where I had zero confidence as a singer and just how much that has changed. So these little signs from all over the place made me think, okay, I wonder if this is something that people want to hear about a little bit. Hence why I put out the survey, and I am so glad I did and got so much feedback from, I'm sure a lot of you are watching this now. Thank you so much for taking the time to fill out that survey. It was really eye-opening and very helpful for me, and I really hope that there's some information in this video as a result that is going to help you directly. So a little bit about my personal story. If you don't care about this, I don't hold it against you. You can either listen to me blather on like a chipmunk at 1.5x speed, or you can jump to ahead to the timestamp. But basically, I am a violinist turned singer. I've always been very interested in classical music since I was a very small child. I started music lessons at the local conservatoire when I was 3, violin lessons at 5, piano at 7, and then by the time I was a teenager, I started playing violin professionally in small ensembles and quartets and things like that. I'd sung a little bit at school in choirs, and I even sang in a school musical once, but by no means considered myself a singer at all. That just wasn't part of my identity. It wasn't until I finished school and was wondering what to do with my life, I made the decision that I would like to pursue voice. So I enrolled in a Bachelor of Music majoring in classical voice, and to be honest, I really wasn't expecting to get in because I didn't really know anything, but I got the shock of my life when I was accepted, and that was kind of the start of my transition over into doing voice full-time. Now, this was definitely jumping into the deep end. All of my classmates had been singing mostly since childhood. I knew so much about the voice and the repertoire and all of these things, and I didn't know anything. So really out of fear and ignorance to begin with, I started learning like crazy. I was watching a lot of operas, I was reading a lot of books, and I'm so glad it actually worked out that way, because the more I learned about opera, the more I fell in love with it. But confidence was obviously a huge issue. When I was a violinist before, it's the instrumentalists among you will know exactly what I'm saying. You have this externalized instrument and you're involved with that. Whereas when you're a singer, you are the instrument, and making that transition was quite difficult for me. And I distinctly remember the first time I performed for my classmates and the absolute horror of, they're a lovely group of people by the way, this is completely just my own issues, but seeing their eyes on me just really freaked me out. My legs were shaking, I had dry mouth, I felt like my throat was closing off, all of the classic symptoms. And what was in my brain at that moment was, it was a bit of a rude awakening. Before, I'd always looked at the music stand when I was playing violin, or I'm wrapped up in this kind of internal world with the instrument, but now I see their eyes, I see they're almost looking right into my soul, like there's nowhere to hide at all. And the realization of, oh my goodness, I have to tell these people a story. I have to communicate something to them. And at that point in my life, I was not ready to do something like that. How did I get out of this? A few different things. So one, I had amazing mentors. I have had amazing mentors over the past decade or so. So throughout my undergrad and postgraduate degree at university, but also outside of that and post-university as well, who have taught me so many things, and I'm very, very lucky. But in terms of specifics, things like getting in touch with my body and being comfortable with movement had a huge impact for me. Also, moving away from kind of just broad brushstrokes of emotion when singing and starting to go into more specific details in the text, so you get more of an authentic expression and just kind of expressing the text as clearly as possible. And the other thing as well, surprise, surprise, was practice. So the more I felt comfortable doing something, the more trust I started to have in myself. It got me thinking when I was making this video, what is confidence? And I think for me and where I was in my journey, confidence is a trust in my capabilities. And I think for me, that's what it boils down to. But I understand that might be entirely different for you. So I'm actually really interested to know if you have your own definition of confidence that resonates with you. Let me know down in the description. I would be absolutely fascinated to read what confidence means to you. So just before I started recording this video, I looked at the latest results of the survey, because they have been changing as people have been adding things, and the latest figure was 34% of the people who had filled out the survey had experienced stage fright to the point where it severely affected their performance, or to the extent that they could not perform at all. Wow, that's some hardcore stuff, right? Now, the thing with stage fright, it's something that I'm not going to address so much in this video. If you want some more short-term methods to change your brain chemistry and get you out of that fight or flight response that is responsible for your stage fright, I do have a course for that. I do cover it in week 4 of my 4-week course, Biohacking Your Brain with Singing. That's coming out soon. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in reading up about that. But the things I'm going to be talking about today are a little bit more long-term things that you can implement into your life to improve your confidence when it comes to your voice and improving the relationship with your voice as well. And you will find, if you are one of those people who does struggle with stage fright, that when you implement these longer-term systems, this is going to kind of tackle the roots of the problem, and you may find that your stage fright starts to diminish as a result of this work anyway. So something that I did notice from the results was that people tend to fit into two vague categories, although there is a lot of overlap as well. I'm just going to call them group one, and the group that I feel I kind of go into the most are people who struggle more when it comes to singing in confidence with negative inner self-talk or limiting beliefs. And then group two are people who more have externalized fears about being judged by other people. But of course, there's so much overlap and you can definitely experience both of those thoughts. So an exercise that can be helpful, I think this is useful for both groups, but especially if you're one of those people who has a lot of fear about being judged by other people. This one I think will benefit you in particular, and that is finding your why. Now, finding your why is kind of the emotional, let's say the seed or the starting point of the process that we're going to talk about today. And I think finding your why is really important because it does kind of set the tone of things to come. What your why is this deep emotional reason of why do you sing? What is it that just is that fire, that passion, that thing that makes you thrive? It's not just kind of everyday life going through the motions like this. Why is it singing, this kind of magical thing? What is it that makes it magic to you? Why? Why is this such a big part of your life? So oftentimes when we get in touch with this base reason of why are we singing, if you're one of those people who, if you kind of perceive your value through other people or you're afraid of being judged, this can be useful because you can reclaim your inner power with this. And it can give you the courage to move forward in your development. It can give you inspiration and motivation. And with that, it puts you in a good mindset to embrace challenges as well. So I do have a worksheet available for that if you need a little bit of help of finding why it is that you sing. So once you have the why sorted, then we can start putting into place our systems. So this is kind of the how approach. The first big point that I want to bring up is the whole notion that you are not your thoughts. So what does this mean? You have so many thoughts on a daily basis. It's what your brain is absolutely perfect at doing. And the thing is with thoughts is that your brain produces them, right? You are an observer to your thoughts. So your thoughts aren't actually you. Your thoughts aren't your identity. Your thoughts are just something that you observe. And something like a thought that's, maybe self-destructive or just like a negative kind of self-talk that you have, a thought like, I'm not good enough, really has the same amount of power as, or just importance as, I need to do my laundry, or what am I going to watch on Netflix tonight, or something like that. It's just a thought, and some thoughts, they just, they come and go and they don't cause us any discomfort, but some of them do, and some of them like to be intrusive, and some of them like to get stuck. But really, they're not you, they're not your identity, and they don't have any power over you. And when you can kind of acknowledge that fact, that you can see your thoughts, you could acknowledge them, and then just let them go along their merry way, or not so merry way, that you have such a strong inner power, and in so many ways, you're completely limitless. So some of you may have made the connection, acknowledging thoughts, letting them go without judgment. This sounds kind of familiar, and you may be right, because it really is kind of the basis of meditation. So with meditation, it's not about emptying your mind of thoughts. It's all just about acknowledging that you are having a thought and then just letting it go and gently bringing your attention back to whatever your meditation anchor was. So whether that be, the breath, or if you do any of the guided singing meditations on this channel, you'd be guided and kind of what that anchor point is. So these processes of just kind of acknowledging the thought and letting it go, you're using exactly the same parts of the brain, and it is something that takes practice. It can be tricky at first. You may want to really hold on to this thought, or your mind may be particularly noisy, and it can be difficult to just focus onto one thing or to just focus on letting that thought just pass. But it is something that gets easier with practice. I want to leave a little side note here that I think is important. Beware of toxic positivity, especially when you're looking into processes of letting negative thoughts pass. It's important to remember that we're not suppressing negative thoughts. Negative thoughts can actually be really useful at times. I know that seems a strange thing to say, but sometimes, if it's anxiety is there to try and keep you safe from something. It also can be a really great motivator. Sadness and things like that, you need to process these things. You can't just push them away. So I think it's important to recognize, yes, you have a separate identity from your thoughts. You are not them, but make sure you're not kind of putting these negative thoughts into a dark corner and ignoring them. Acknowledge that they're there, experience them, even if that means they're uncomfortable sometimes. It happens, but it's important to experience negative emotions in order to let them process, and then we can just let them pass. So with that little side note out of the way, the reason why these things get easier with practice is neuroplasticity. So if you don't know what that is, a very kind of brief description is you have little neuron, oh my God, you have these little neuron bundles that send messages to different parts of your nervous system, and those are called neural pathways. So when you do something new, you create a neural pathway, and the more you do that thing or think that thing, you're strengthening that neural pathway. It becomes easier and easier. So the practice of detaching from your thoughts and the practice of meditation gets easier over time. The other way you can embrace this notion of neuroplasticity is with affirmations. Now, I personally love affirmations. I use them every day, but I think it is also important to remember back to toxic positivity. Things like saying, so an affirmation is like a short, precise, positive phrase that you can repeat to yourself over and over. They're usually in the first person, and they're usually in present tense. So I am statements are very common, and it can help to kind of put an emotion behind that and even kind of visualize yourself in that kind of state as well. But choosing an affirmation like I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. This is just my personal thoughts, but I think affirmations like that can do a bit of a disservice to yourself, I think, because you're not honoring your own processes and your own emotional journey. Again, it's that toxic positivity thing. You're kind of trying to push yourself into an emotional headspace that maybe isn't the best thing for you right now. Instead, what I think is really useful are things like I am certain that my confidence is building every day, because something like that, it's active and it's authentic and it is still part of your process. So just quickly, I do have a worksheet in the ebook called Challenging Outcomes, which is perfect for those among you who may automatically catastrophize and jump to the worst case scenario and ruminate and worry on all the things that could possibly go wrong. I have a CBT, a cognitive behavioral therapy exercise in the book that may help with that. It looks at what's the worst outcome that could possibly happen, what's the best outcome, and then what the most likely outcome is as well. So a little bit of an extension on the you are not your thoughts. Sometimes thoughts can be particularly intrusive, they can be particularly upsetting, or just they don't want to go. They're just those thoughts that there's just that carousel of like negative self-talk or whatever it is, a limiting belief that just is really difficult to shake. Have a little system that you can put in place to help with this. Number one, you ask yourself, is this thought true? Now, chances are, if this is that kind of carousel thought that you have a lot, and especially if you're in a state of being upset, your brain is automatically going to think like, yes, this thought is true, because you've strengthened that neural pathway. It's kind of like your brain is like the simplest conclusion to come through, like, yes, this thing is true. Step 2, ask yourself, but is it really true? And this is where you look at this thought from different angles. You're going to look at all the evidence around you that point to, hey, maybe this thought isn't actually true. So whatever that may be for your situation, if you say, for example, like, I can't sing, everyone thinks I'm a terrible singer, think to yourself back, like, when were the times that there's kind of evidence that, hey, maybe your singing isn't that bad. Maybe you got a really great applause for a performance you did. Maybe, you know, even something like your mum gave you a compliment about your singing. Your mum loves your singing. Like, even all of these small things, they really count. Even if you don't 100% believe it, start to think to yourself, okay, is this thought 100% based in truth and reality? Number 3 is you ask yourself, okay, how does this thought make me feel? And it helps here to be as specific as you can. So rather than just saying like, this thought makes me feel sad. Okay, what does sad mean? Could sad be, this thought makes me feel disappointed. This thought makes me doubt myself. This thought makes me feel frustrated. This thought, takes me back and reminds me of this thing that happened. Like, try and be precise about what actual emotion it is that you're feeling. You can start to think, okay, where does this fit into a bigger picture of things? Does this have anything to do with kind of a bigger context or storyline? Did something happen before that is making me think this way and have this kind of attachment to this particular thought? And number 4 is, what would it be like if I didn't hold this belief? So really think about how your whole life would be different. How would your relationships be different with other people, but also yourself as well? How would your health be different? How would your energy levels be different? All of these things. So when you go through this process, sometimes those thoughts that were particularly intrusive or that just didn't want to let go, it becomes a lot less sticky and you can start to kind of process these feelings and have that detachment of, hey, these thoughts aren't my identity, they're just thoughts. A tip that I find personally useful if I have an intrusive thought that I have trouble making go away is I think about all of the thoughts that I've ever had and how little of them I remember. I mean, I am particularly forgetful, but you know what I mean? Like, you think of so many thoughts throughout the day and really none of them have power on you. None of them are more or less important than others. And I remind myself that, where do thoughts go when you forget them? I mean, no one knows. Like, they're just like in the abyss or somewhere, right? And it's certainly nothing that's affecting me anymore. So I know that eventually, even if a thought is causing me a lot of pain and discomfort, that it will pass eventually. And when it does, it's not going to affect me at all anymore. Okay, so moving on from there, the next piece of information I want to share with you, this is something that literally changed my life in so many ways. I think it's actually number 1 bit of advice I would ever give anyone. Focusing on systems and not goals. So the thing is, goals and motivation by tandem are not particularly useful. They can actually be kind of problematic at times. You might be thinking like, what? Especially when it comes to something like goals. Like, don't we want goals? Isn't what goals makes us kind of want to go out and achieve and do things? I'll talk about motivation first. So the thing with motivation is that we can't trust it, right? It feels amazing when we're motivated and getting things done and it's like, yeah, like I'm doing the thing, I'm so motivated. But what happens then when we're not motivated anymore? Motivation can be untrustworthy. We don't know when we're going to feel motivated. We don't know how long we're going to feel motivated for, and then what happens when we no longer feel motivated. Oftentimes we get kind of put into feelings of shame or procrastinating, or just feeling like, oh my God, I'm so lazy. And then, you start getting that negative inner monologue start to happen. I think goals, can be wonderful sometimes, but they can also be problematic sometimes as well, I think. So with goals, you kind of get onto this hamster wheel, right? Just say you achieve a goal and you get that hit of dopamine, that reward system, like, yes, I did the thing. And then you're kind of left, okay, now what? I have to find another goal. And it kind of gets you into this pattern of like, I'm going to be happy when I reach the next thing. I'm going to be happy when I reach this goal. And you're just kind of constantly on this hamster wheel of trying to achieve something and then achieve again. And it can start to be quite a hollow experience. The thing is as well, with true transformation, you need to be consistent. And when you rely on goals and motivation to get you somewhere, there's tools missing, and I think you can set yourself up for disappointment a lot because you're not going to be totally 100% motivated and with it the whole time, or otherwise, these things would be easy and we would all be, doing all these amazing things like all the time, but it's not that easy. What can be a useful thing is to focus on your systems or your processes. So the thing with systems is that they need to fit into your lifestyle as easily and seamlessly as possible. They should be kind of quite easy to follow because these are the things that are going to make you consistent, and these are the things that are going to take you to where you want to go. You can apply this concept of focusing on systems and not goals in absolutely any part of your life that you want to. And one part that I think it's particularly good to use it for is your singing practice. I find it can really change your relationship with your voice. So basically, I use this as a big one of my teaching philosophies with my students. So the goal is the result, right? What you sound like. What can often happen when you have an end result in mind is that, one, it may not be your most authentic and healthy voice. You're kind of imprinting what you think your voice should sound like on that end result. Another thing is that things can become a little bit unpredictable. Just say you get that sound by fluke. You don't know then how to replicate it. You don't know how you got there. And the other thing as well, when you're thinking with the result in mind, is that you're constantly listening to yourself and micro adjusting it's a little bit like you're helicopter parenting yourself, and it can make the actual processes of healthy singing quite tricky. It makes it very difficult to just kind of let go of the breath, feeling fully grounded and present in the moment if you're constantly just listening for what you sound like. And you'll be able to get the result much faster anyway if you just focus on the process itself. The cool thing with singing is that it's such a sensory experience, right? And it's the perfect kind of anchor for meditation. So whether it be, you're focusing on your breath, or you're focusing on, I want to place this here, or I'm focusing on my vowels, like if you just have one specific focus in mind, it's like a meditation anchor, right? But you're not going to be distracted, and you're going to put that part of your technique into muscle memory faster. Not only that, but you're going to know exactly what you need to do to get an alignment to achieve the result at the end. So you do need to start from the beginning. You can't just jump to the end and be like, I want to sound like this. It's kind of really on its head. And the thing is, when you have your processes and all of these systems kind of in alignment, you're singing the healthiest way that you can and the most efficient way that you can. And it's going to mean that it's your authentic voice that comes out at the end in its kind of most distilled and healthy and efficient form. So on top of putting processes in place for your practice and your attitude to singing, you can also use the same approach for building confidence with your singing as well. The good thing about putting systems in place is that even when you are faced with a hardship, say you're going into a high pressure situation where you need to perform in front of people, it could be an audition, it could be a performance, it could be even just, singing for a family barbecue, like whatever it is that, and that's going to be a triggering thing for you. Having these systems in place, you're going to feel in control of the situation no matter what's going on around you. And number one for building your confidence, and this is a sliding scale depending on where you are. These processes are something that are very fluid, and it's something that you will need to find what will work best for you. But number one, you need to find the smallest step possible. Tiny little incremental steps. So just say you're struggling with stage fright. You could do something like singing in the mirror, but if that's too much, you can sing in the mirror looking at your feet, and then you can start to maybe let your eyes travel up until you can sing making eye contact with yourself in the mirror. That can be stage one. You could be doing something like singing indirectly in front of a family member, say they're like in another room doing something. Maybe you could be also doing something, cleaning your room or something like that, and start singing to yourself while there's someone kind of indirectly listening. You might think, I'm going to give my dog or cat serenading, or whatever it is, the tiniest step you can imagine. It could be something like booking a voice lesson as well. Step number two is to create a personalized plan. So obviously this is something that's going to vary greatly between person to person. So you need to think about things that are going to fit into your daily life quite seamlessly. So things like you may want to become a little bit clearer on your practice schedule. So not just leaving it to chance. Maybe you want to, block 10 or 15 minutes. So, after I have my lunchtime coffee, I'm gonna sing for 15 minutes. Again, it can be quite small. And really, if you're just kind of starting with things, the smaller the better, to make sure that you're consistent with it. You could do something like implement a meditation practice, or you could decide that, okay, from now on, I'm just gonna be doing mindful singing. I'm not going to, if my brain starts to think about other things, or that negative self-talk is happening, I'm going to start the work of practicing, of bringing it back to the breath or whatever it is that you're focusing on in that particular session. So using your singing as meditation in movement. The thing is, this doesn't have to be a concrete thing. It needs to be flexible with your lifestyle, and you can adjust it to fit as you go. It may not be perfect first time. You may realize after a while, oh, actually this time of day is no good for me. That's fine. Just change it, make it as easy as possible for yourself. Number three is building assurance. And this was a big one for me, as I explained earlier on. The more you practice knowing that you can do something, the more trust you're going to have in your capabilities. So even when there's chaos around you and you're scared about a performance, you know your processes. Just say you're scared about hitting the high note at the end of a piece or something. If you've been putting into practice this whole singing as meditation in movement, you're totally aware of the sensory feedback you get in the process of hitting that note, and you've been hitting that note in practice every single time. You know exactly what it feels like to approach that note and to hit it. When you get to your performance, you're not going to feel nearly as stressed or worried, because you've proven to yourself that you can do it, and you'll trust yourself, you'll trust your capabilities. If you need some help kind of putting together a system for yourself, if you to just brainstorm ideas of what you can kind of put into your processes to get to where you want to go, I do have a worksheet for that as well. So that's it. So this video has been quite intense. I've tried to cram a lot of quite abstract and complicated and objective subjects into this video. I hope it was clear to you. If not, please let me know if there's something you'd like me to elaborate on. Also, because there was a lot of information in this video, please don't feel overwhelmed. You can stop the video at any time or come back and watch it again. Take your time reflecting on things and implement them in your own time. But ultimately, I really, really hope that there was something in here that will help you on your journey. So if any of this resonated with you, I do have a few other things that I can offer. I did mention I have my 4-week course coming out. That's kind of a little bit more brain chemistry based and how singing can help you change your brain chemistry. It's a 4-week course called Biohacking Your Brain with Singing. If you want some one-on-one guidance, you can also write me through my website. We can have a chat about this kind of thing, or if you would like a voice lesson, all good. And yeah, don't forget that there is a free ebook for you with everything we spoke about today that is waiting for you in the description. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that there's something in here that you find useful. I would love to know what you think about all this. Is there anything you've heard before? Anything that's new to you? Anything you're really excited to try out? I would love to know. Please write to me in the comments. So that is it from me for today. I wish you a beautiful day, and if you would like to help me out, you can like this video and subscribe, help this little baby channel grow a little bit. Have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.